For the moms barely holding it together.
Motherhood isn't perfect.
Neither are we. Welcome to What the Motherhood.
Hey guys, welcome back to What the Motherhood. So on today's episode, it's going to be me only today because Jackie is super busy, but I definitely want to make sure that we keep, episodes coming for you guys. So I do have a little bit more spare time than she does. So I wanted to share from my point of view as being a single mom, how I'm raising my two teenagers and obviously my cute little toddler. And then Jackie would do the same episode, but how she's raising her teenagers because she has more than I do, and how she's doing that as a married woman, still having a partner. But today, I honestly just wanted to, I guess, get your guys' input or even vent. Very, I feel like I know I'm doing something right, but I feel like I'm also not doing something right. I feel obviously because it is a single parent household, I obviously have to, be strict and I have to be fun. I have to be cool. I have to be all these different things because, the kid's dad's not around. So I feel like I have a 15-year-old son, who's going to be 16 in October. Then I have my daughter who just turned 14 in May. And I feel like I can help my daughter more than I could help my son. And it makes me very emotional because I feel, I hate crying, but I feel like he is so left out. And I feel like he stays to himself. He stays in his room because he can't really relate to my daughter and I because, when I do my nails, she wants to do her nails. When I dye my hair, she wants to dye her hair. When I, do girly things, I could do them with her. And he doesn't have that. He doesn't have nobody to play football with, play catch outside with. And, I try to be that dad that he needs, especially in this generation, especially raising these kids. I feel like they're already soft because God forbid you punish your kid in public, like somebody is going to call social services on you or the police on you or whatever. So you can't raise your voice in public. You can't, pow pow or hana your kid in the booty. You can't do anything nowadays like how it used to be back in the day. And I get it because a lot of us from the back in the day have trauma. I get it, but I believe it's how you go about it. I think spanking your kids is definitely normal. I think that there's a difference between spanking and abusing. Um, I definitely think you have to assert dominance and assert authority 100%. But I feel like I don't I hana and I pow the baby, like tap on the butt or the hand or something when he does something wrong, just to obviously teach him. But with the older ones, I've always spoke to them. I always talked to them about things I had issues with and how they should go about life and my opinions and my choices and the wrong ones that I have done, the wrong choice and decision I also have done to have them understand and learn. But I feel like in this generation, they're just a lot lazier, I feel, because we can't be as aggressive as our parents or our grandparents were. And because I am a single parent household, I feel like I'm losing some days and I'm also winning some days. And what I mean by that is I feel like a failure at times, especially with my son, Noah, because I feel like I can't offer him things that his dad did or could have. I feel like I want to play catch with him. I want to ride the go-kart with him. I want to ride bikes with him. I want to skateboard with him. But because I have the baby, he's very attached to my hip and I can't do a lot. And my ass can't fucking skateboard. My ass can't skate. I could ride a fucking bike, but I don't have time to spend that one-on-one time with my son Noah. And he's my firstborn. And I love that kid so much. And since the DV incident with him back in 2020 with his dad and I, which I'll break into in a different episode, but I feel like since then he lost his spark. He lost his smile and his laughter. And I see it come back sometimes, especially when he's with his friends or when he's with his sister and her friends. And I see it come back and it makes me so happy. But I feel like I can't bring that out in him. And as a mom, I should be able to. bring his happiness how he was before the DV incident. He was happy, he would smile, he would laugh, he would hug me, he would tell me he loves me. And now I don't know if it's just a teenager thing. I don't know if he's growing up. I don't know if this is just a typical teenage boy attitude, but I feel like he feels alone. I feel horrible about that because I feel like it's my fault. I feel like I I don't know. I feel responsible for that. I feel because I kept bringing his dad back that it was that emotional roller coaster. And then I feel that no, listen, this is just a normal teenage boy thing. I think I don't know. But then I remember back in the day when I was his age and I didn't have a close relationship with my mom and my dad was MIA. I felt alone. I felt miserable. I felt so many emotions and thoughts in my head that which led me to drug usage. And I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible with him, especially knowing that his dad has an addiction problem. So I feel like raising these kids in this generation, especially as a single mom, is so difficult because you can't discipline them so much because they get so trapped in their emotions and they can't handle it. And then you're thinking about, oh my God, are they going to commit suicide? Are they going to go ahead and lead to drugs? Are they sad? Are they unhappy? Are they mad? Are they like, what's going on? And I feel like it drives me crazy because I can't read him. Like he says he's okay. He says he doesn't miss his dad, but I know that's a lie. I know he does. He says that, he's happy, that he's not miserable. He says he's okay. He's not depressed. He says that he's totally fine, but I feel like that's a lie. And I feel like he doesn't want to tell me because he doesn't want to hurt my feelings. But I feel like I'm like drowning over here in some type of way. But I'm also not drowning because I think that I have such an open relationship with my kids that I don't see why they don't feel comfortable talking to me. But I know that they also know that I'm so vulnerable and they don't want to tell me certain things probably because they don't want to hurt my feelings, but I tell them, even if it hurts my feelings, just tell me. And, for my daughter, Ava, when she was battling depression, because she was being bullied in school for her weight, when she was suicidal, it killed me because I felt like I've been there. I know what that's like to be in such a dark place and hate your body and hate who you are. And why weren't you born this skinny? And why weren't you born with, boobs? Why weren't you born with straight hair? Why weren't you born with perfect teeth? Why, all these questions of why wasn't I this, why wasn't I that, it does get to you. So knowing, she was growing up depressed and her cutting herself and her, dealing with that, and I had to deal with that as a single mom. I was like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing so wrong that my daughter feels unloved and unbeautiful, that she has to self-harm? Because I know when I was self-harm, I didn't have a mom who was willing to talk to me and open up because she was young herself. She didn't know any better. She didn't know how to go about that. And I feel like I'm totally opposite than my mom because I learned from her mistakes. And I feel like even though I'm opposite from her, I still feel like I'm failing because my daughter was still suicidal. My daughter was still cutting herself, not because of household things. Maybe it was, maybe she doesn't want to tell me, but she did mention in therapy and when we had our conversations that it was because of, school and being bullied in her weight. But I feel like there's things that I probably could have done better to make her feel more beautiful and loved. And I feel like I'm trying to do that now. But because she's barely 14 and already headed to sophomore year, she's a lot younger than the typical sophomore. So she's trying to be older and more mature, like her brother's age, because she finished seventh grade a lot faster. So she bumped up to a higher grade where her older brother is. So now my 15-year-old and my 14-year-old are in the same grade. They're both moving to sophomore. So she has to feel like she has to be more mature, be prettier, be, like a 15, 16-year-old, and she's not that. And so it's like as a single mom, how do I talk to her nicely where it doesn't put her down, to where it doesn't, trigger, her depression or her suicidal thoughts that she's not good enough. Even though I'm so honest and blunt with her, and she's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful girl, and so loving and so caring. And I feel like you just have to walk on eggshells when you talk to kids nowadays because everything is just so fucking sensitive, you know? So it's like I have to walk on eggshells with her and make sure that I tread lightly to make sure I don't trigger her. And then with my son, I feel like I have to, talk to him and let him know that it's okay to cry. It's okay to say I'm sorry. It's okay to acknowledge when you mess up. It's okay to say I miss you. It's okay to say, Mom, I'm hurting. It's okay to say that, Mom, I'm depressed. It's okay to say, like, Mom, I'm not okay. And I feel like he just doesn't want to because he feels like he has to be the man of the house. But I don't want him to be the man of the house, but I also want him to be responsible, though. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm like contradicting because I'm like, no, I don't want you to have too much responsibility because I want you to enjoy your childhood. But because we don't have a man in the house, you have to be a little bit more responsible and mature than the average 15, 16-year-old because I count on him a lot to help me out because he is my oldest, and I feel like I don't want to do that because I remember my mom doing that to me, my sister, that we had to basically raise our brother, clean the house and do everything, and it was just so much at that age. So I try not to do that, but I feel like, fuck, like, what am I doing? I try to talk to both of them. I try to be open with them. I, sit down and watch movies with them, especially that new movie Crash that just came out regarding, those teenagers in a bad accident. I have them watch, the news when, kids go missing or when, teens, at a party, die of overdose because, the pills were laced with, fentanyl. I have them watch so many things to tell them that, like, and teach them, like, babe, this shit is real out here. One simple mistake can cost you, your fucking life, where there's death or life in prison. Like, I try to talk to them, be open about so many possibilities, and I feel like I could trust them. I feel like I'm doing a good job at that part. But internally, when it comes to our house, I feel like I'm not doing my part as a mom. I feel like raising kids in today's society is so hard, and they don't really have social media, especially my daughters have social media. Noah does for football on, Instagram, but it's not like how it was when they both had it, especially Ava. I was dealing with, her, on dating websites as a young age and, doing, looking for, guys' attention and at a young age. And it was just like, what am I doing wrong? Like, there's something I'm doing that it's not lining up with them for her to feel like she has to reach out to men or, for my son to go ahead and shut down and, and not feel comfortable telling me boy stuff, like I don't know much about boy stuff, but I am willing to learn while he learns, because obviously he doesn't have a dad, but I'm pretty sure there's stuff that he wanted to ask, growing up and, hitting puberty. I'm pretty sure he wanted to ask me a couple things, but I have no idea because he just says everything's fine, but I know it's not fine. And it's like, yeah, I put him in therapy and they go to therapy and everything, but like he just keeps saying everything's fine, but I know it's not because when his dad was out, his dad told me that he said he just wishes that he could do things like Ava and I do things. He wishes that he could, go play football outside, catch with, with his dad, just how like Ava and I go get our nails done. And that just fucking kills me because when his dad's not around, all he does is sit in his room, watch TV, and that's it, and sleep. And that to me is depression, but he says he's not. So I don't know. It's fucking hard raising teenagers in this society and this fucking generation because you just don't fucking know. One day they could be fine, one day they could be suicidal, and you never fucking know because all they keep saying is I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine until they're not fine. And it's like, what am I doing wrong? What can I do to help them? Like I feel like I'm like I said earlier, I feel like I'm drowning because I'm trying to find so many ways to connect with them, especially my son, and I feel like I'm just fucking like fishing and I'm not catching anything. And I want to take him, to do like those bear drips in LA and shit like that. But again, it's so hard because I don't have a babysitter to watch the baby, and I want to do things individual. I want to take Ava out by herself. I want to take Noah out by himself and obviously Damien by himself. But I really want to focus on Noah because I feel like he needs more of my attention because he doesn't have his dad. And I feel like, am I doing that right? Are there any other single moms out there who have a teenage son who feels the same way? Or am I just a fucking emotional fucking wreck that I feel guilty that my son is depressed or not depressed, or I don't know what he is, but I feel like this is fucking hard. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know how to raise teenagers. I don't. I wake up every morning like, holy shit, I'm gonna have a fucking 16-year-old myself. I'm gonna have a 16-year-old in a couple of months. Like, where the fuck did time go? I didn't think when he was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that 16 I was gonna have a 16-year-old. You know what I mean? I was just like working every day to fucking live. And now that he's gonna be 16, I'm like, oh my god, my baby's gonna be 16. He's trying to get into, USC football. My daughter wants to go to Harvard, and I'm like, oh my god, this pressure is fucking real. Like, there's so much that comes with teenagers, and especially during high school, and doing it alone. I feel so overwhelmed and already defeated because I'm like, oh my god, this is double the prom. Oh my god, my daughter wants a quinceañera, and we have a year to fucking plan it and pay for it. My the toddler, my 3-year-old, my 2-year-old's gonna be 3 in 2 months. And I got bills, I have responsibility. Noah's football's coming up. I gotta start, helping him, get scouted. I gotta help him, get ready for, USC to make sure that his grades are up or whatever recommendations or requirements is needed. Ava wants to go to Harvard or Stanford. I got to make sure she's good. And I feel like there's so much stuff I have to do as a single mom to make sure my kids are successful, but also make sure that their mental stability is good. You know what I mean? And I feel like, fuck, this is hard. God damn it. Like, my mom didn't tell me raising teenagers was hard. She said, like, oh, good luck. Like every mom says, like, oh my God, oh, she's just like you. She's going to be 2 times worse. Like they always joke about that. But, like, let me tell you, my kids are so much better than I was. So much better than I was. And I know it's their living situation. I know it's the parenting situation. I know it's how they, been raised. And I am so grateful that I'm a fucking badass parent, that I am a fucking awesome mom. But sometimes I feel like I'm a fucking failure. And it sucks because I feel like, what else can I do? What else can I do? I don't want my kids to see me have my breakdowns, but I also know that that is normal. That's life. And I want them to see that because I want them to know that, fuck, this shit is difficult for me too. It's hard for me too because there's one of me and three of you. And I made the choice to have you guys. You guys, none of you were a mistake. All of you were planned. So it is my responsibility to go ahead and make sure that I do whatever the fuck I can to provide for them. But everything is so expensive nowadays, especially right now. And I feel like I want them to explore high school and have fun, and that's just expensive. So on top of bills, on top of high school crap, on top of obviously having a toddler, on top of freaking bills, I'm like, oh my god, like what the fuck? How am I, like, I think every day, like, oh my god, this is due, this is due. We gotta plan for Ava's party, gotta plan for the baby's birthday, gotta help Noah with his football. Like now they wanna go to these certain colleges. Like, I gotta go ahead and start planning that shit out. So I'm like, holy fuck, Alyssa, you need an assistant or something. Like, this is just so much. And then on top of that, my mother-in-law just passed away this Friday, so that was fucking heavy. And now that obviously the dad is in reception, I don't even think that anybody has reached out to him to even let him know that his mom has passed away. So I know that that's bugging the kids. Ava took it really hard. um Noah obviously doesn't show any emotion, because he tries to hold everything in because he feels like he has to be the man. So talking to them on top of that, on top of everything else we're trying to do, is like, I just feel like the weight is just getting heavier and heavier and heavier and bigger for me. I feel like, holy shit, I'm like, I just feel like I can't breathe, if that makes sense, right? And like I said, just raising kids in this generation as a single mom is fucking hard. And it's not the fact of, like, I guess money wise and buy them things. It's what to say, how to go about it, how to punish them. Do you take away their phone? Do you not take away their phone? You do, they still don't listen. It's like, you take away their sports, they still don't listen. Like, you try to give them chores, they do it, but they do it half fast. Like, it's because they're kids. But it's like, as a single mom, I have to make sure that I'm stern with them. I have to make sure that they understand that there's consequences to choices and decisions they make. Like, if they don't do their chore right, there's consequences. You can't go to your job and not do it right and think that you're still going to get paid and not fired. Like, you can't go to football practice and not give your all, think that you're going to be, a starter, or, be able to fucking play the next game. You can't go to Harvard or Stanford and think that you don't have to show up at school on time, or that you don't have to wake up on time, or that you don't have to do your chores correctly, because when you live in the dorm room, I'm not going to be there to be on your ass about it. So, but it's also like, you can't push too hard, because then you don't want to ruin their childhood and be like, oh my god, my mom was so strict, oh my god, we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that, we went everywhere, but my mom was always like, do this, do that, da da da. And that's how I feel like I fucking am. I'm like constantly yelling, constantly like on them, but I do so much for them and I want them to enjoy their life, that we go places, we do things, their friends are always over, always take their friends somewhere, whatever. But the only thing I ask is for them to do their chores and keep their grades, straight A's. And they do that, but sometimes like their chores slack or their grades fall like to a B or C. But I feel like, stop being so fucking anal, Alyssa. But then it's like, no, Alyssa, you have to be fucking anal because it's only you. So you have to teach them more than what maybe the average mom does, because there's a mom and a dad in every household possibly. And so both of them together, they could teach different things. For me, I can't. It's strictly, Alyssa, you have to be mom and dad, so you have to be strict. But I just don't want to ruin their childhood because I'm strict. So fuck, god damn it. Like what is the correct way to fucking do this shit nowadays? Like, what is the right way to fucking raise a goddamn teenager in today's society? How do we punish them? How do we teach them? How do we, how the fuck do we, how do we do it? I don't know. I'm just doing the best that I fucking can, so that my son is an amazing fucking boyfriend one day, and my son is an amazing fucking husband one day, and an amazing fucking father one day, because I do not want him to ever disrespect his partner. I don't ever want him to fucking step out on his fucking family. I don't ever want him to abandon his children, because that's why I'm busting my ass off to teach him not to do those things, because that's not okay. A good man does not do that. Even if you separate from your partner, that doesn't mean you separate from your kids and anything changes. I just want to teach him morals and values and what's right and what's wrong. But as of today, like, fuck, what's right and what's wrong? Like, really, like, everything's so fucking mixed up. Like, what is right and what is fucking wrong? You know? But how could I teach him to love somebody, or how can I teach my daughter to accept love when I haven't even accepted it yet, when I'm still single, when I'm still dealing with their dad stuff? Like, how can I teach him to be in a good positive relationship when I'm not even in one myself to give him an example? All I can do is just talk to them about what I've learned and what I went through, and is that fucking doing shit right, or am I fucking already fucking them over by telling them what I went through? Like, I don't even know. But all I can say is, if you are a single mom or just a mom out there raising teenagers in today's society, how are you doing it? What are you doing? Like, what are you achieving? What are you failing at? What do you feel like you're doing right? What do you feel like you're doing wrong? Because I feel like I'm going through this raising teenager thing in today's society blindfolded and just taking it a day at a time, and just kind of biting off more than what I can chew. But I feel like it's my responsibility. I have to. So I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I just feel very overwhelmed. But thank you for listening to me. Hopefully you relate to this episode, because another day of Alyssa just venting on fucking life and being a fucking parent and motherhood. But anyways, thank you for tuning in, and yeah, until next time.
If today's episode hit you and you felt seen, understood, or like we were speaking your life, show us some love. You could support our podcast by sending just $1 to our Cash App, What the Motherhood. It's our way of knowing we're reaching the moms who really need this. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next episode.